My name is Matthias, and I am from the Netherlands, and it only makes sense to speak at a Dutch meetup that is indeed in Groningen in the north of the Netherlands, but I assume that there are at least a few that we have already heard are also outside of the Netherlands, which I think is a benefit of all these online meetups. Everybody can join, so that's really nice. But in the end, of course, it would still be nice to meet some of you in person whenever possible. Yeah, I was going to say Tomasz will be a little bit later. He's also speaking, like we are doing it actually together. But I just noticed
he's there. Your
he's there.
Thomas is there.
Yes,
Hello,
my
Thomas.
Thomas.
We're very happy you're here.
Oh, I wish it was my Thomas, but no.
No, this is Thomas
Yeah.
Votruba.
No, right. No, I was just kidding. But yeah, this is the one. Great. Welcome. Yeah. This is the program for tonight. First, I have an introduction about Rector, which is a tool that is, I think, going to be more important by the day for all PHP developers. After that, Tomasz will show how it works, what you can do with it, and I hear he has something special tonight. Then there is the possibility for you to ask questions, and we will try to give answers. And finally, I have a few things to mention about the book that we wrote, so that could be helpful, well, deciding if it's something for you and how you can learn more about this topic. But first, the fireside chats. I think it's an interesting thing that Stefan Hochdörfer from the German PHP meetup invented as a name, but of course, the name is already around for a long time. I was just Googling it, and it turns out that the fireside chats is something like known by American President Roosevelt. And he had a radio show where he talked to, well, normal people, just trying to level with them. And I think that's a really nice idea. It's also definitely a marketing tool. So I'm not saying this is our marketing tool, but it is interesting to know that, yeah, that's a way of talking with people to familiarize them with something that, yeah, they may not like yet. In this case, it's a president that they may not like, and now in the end they start liking him. So that's a good idea. But yeah, I just thought it would be interesting. Tomasz at some point changed the name actually to the Ring of Fire, which is much more powerful. Although it's maybe not such a useful thing on Earth, like to have a ring of fire with volcanoes exploding every now and then. I do remember from childhood that we went to the cinema where there was a 3D movie with those shaking chairs, and the topic was actually Ring of Fire. So it was just a funny memory there that yeah, we could watch those scary volcanoes and like go back and forward in our chairs. Speaking of fire and chairs, I think that's what we are in all day, working with our legacy code software, and it's just generally quite horrible. Still, we tend to think it's fine to live with all of the mess around us. And I always wonder how much pain can we put up with? Like, how much pain do we actually accept? Looking around at some of the wishes that developers have when they are working with their projects, they may want to migrate from Zend 1, even Zend 1 back in the day, to Symfony 5, or, well, scratch this, it should be 6 already. People want to maybe migrate from Active Record to a data mapper for their ORM. Well, makes sense, but yeah, that's a lot of work. So, well, at some point we'd like to do that, but not today. Same for PHP 8 attributes. We'd like to use them instead of doctrine annotations. But come on, it's going to be a lot of work to migrate. Yeah. So definitely at some point we want to, and this is something I hear a lot developers saying, at some point we will do that, like eventually, but not now. And yeah, you know how that works. Same for final classes. Once you know what final classes are, and well, you want them everywhere, right? And then you have to go over the code base, like final. Yeah, it may never happen. It's just a lot of work. Even strict types, like that's going to be a lot of work, and the project is going to yeah, shake and tremble because those changes are being made. Not alone because, yeah, whenever we make such a change, we have to do a lot of testing before we can release it. There are just so many chances for us to make mistakes there. And well, as you know, the priority is always on keeping the project running, and like build new features, not on improving a project along the entire line. And that is, it's a shame, because as you know, that's the broken windows theory, right? If there are messy things in your project, that is often seen as an invitation to make more messy things, and to cut corners wherever you like. There are sometimes those migration projects that are only halfway done because, well, now we have to get back to the normal work. And this leads to a lack of innovation. A lot of new features, a lot of new possibilities are not used in your project, and you're missing out on new things, on good things. So it's not just fear of missing out, but you're actually missing out. And then the point arrives where it's even becoming hard to find new developers, because nobody wants to work on this project. There is nothing cool in this project. So yeah, how is that going to work? The longer you keep this situation, the longer you don't change these things or update your project, well, the harder it will become to change anything at all. Change will become really scary, and every change will become really slow as well. It will be a lot of work and a lot of careful, typing, testing, deploying. Yeah, it's going to be very scary. So these kinds of dreams that people have, like migrate to a different framework or to a different type of ORM, introduce strict types in your project everywhere. Maybe there are different things that you want to do for your project. And my question is, what would you like to do? And please write it down. If you could have like any amount of time you'd have for your project, what would you like to change about it? And it could be like dream big, go from PHP 5 to 8. Whatever. Think of it, and we'll talk about it later. Because we first want to talk about Rector. Rector is a tool that is there for already quite a few years now, but yeah, I think it's gaining traction, as you could call it. People are using it more, understanding it better, and using it for their own situations. So that's going to be very interesting, I think, to learn a bit more about. It's actually quite mature, very well tested, and very stable as a project. So it's really time for you to start using it. It's powered by PHP Parser, which is a tool created by Nikita Popov, one of the, I don't think today, but used to do a lot of work on the PHP language itself. And it's a tool that understands PHP and can create meaningful units based on the code. And also it's powered by PHP Stan, which is another very powerful tool created in recent years that can understand your code and can also derive the types that are used in your code, like classes for parameter types, return types, variables, all of that. So these two very powerful tools have enabled Tomasz to create Rector. And yeah, this man is here in the meetup, so that's really cool. He's a very cool guy, very nice to work with. I had the pleasure of doing so, and yeah, it's still a lot of work. It's a very big project, but also it has all of these moving parts, so there's a lot to take into consideration. So one of the questions that I would have for Tomasz is, how do you stay on track, like on your path, and not get distracted by all of the stuff that is coming at you? So happy to hear your answer later. First, a little bit more about Rector. Rector, using PHP Parser, can understand your code. Using PHP Stan, it can derive all of the types in your code. And then it can change your code. So because it understands the code, every change it can make is going to be a safe change. So it knows what it does. And if it doesn't, you can help it understand your code in a better way. So you can change its behavior. You can apply some kinds of rules to your project that will improve it. You can fine-tune it. You can enable a lot of rules. You can enable some rules that will change your code. If the rules that are built into Rector don't match your needs, you can still create your own rules and basically extend the tool to do what you like to your code base. What I find very interesting is that, and I think Rector is like mainly popular for that. Like you can do a migration from PHP 5 to 8 or from Symfony this to that. sometimes even from that framework to this framework. But it's not, for me, it's not just about one-time upgrades. It's about having a rule for your code, like how to write code, how the code should look like, what kind of structures would you prefer, and then enabling the rule and keep reinforcing it forever. So you can basically improve your code base for one bit and do it everywhere and keep doing it, so that if somebody on the team still reintroduces an old way of doing things, then Rector will fix that old way into the new way. So that's a very powerful thing. So it leads to actually like continuous improvement. And well, not just continuous improvement like CI, but also CI for continuous integration, because Rector can run during your build for the project, and it can check the rules, like does the code follow all those rules that you have enabled and have configured. And then, well, that could be considered next level, because Rector can also really just apply those rules for you. And you don't have to think about it. If you have that rule, like a class should be final if it has no children, right? Then it can just add the final for you. You don't have to remember it. It can just do it. And that's another very powerful thing. What I find, and I've worked with Rector in this way too, Tomasz would enable a rule, I would make a mistake, and the rule would actually fix it for me. And that's just a really great thing. This is also the way that you learn about new language features. If you're writing an old school switch statement, then Rector can propose a change, like to use the PHP 8 match thing. And yeah, that could be a way to learn. In fact, you don't even have to learn it yourself or read it. It will just do it for you. You don't have to think about it. But it can really become this kind of coach where you learn about better ways to program. And it could be a lifestyle. In fact, I've learned this from Tomasz as well. As soon as you find yourself pointing out the same issues in a code review, you can create a Rector rule for it that either fixes it or like suggests a change for you. And yeah, that could be a way of taking away all this boring review work. If it's not something that you can't automatically fix with Rector, you can also go one layer deeper and fix it with a PHP stand rule, because PHP stand could then throw an error for things that you don't want, and not just immediately start fixing things, but just say, we don't do this in our team, something like that. So in the end, I think that this is like the evolution of using tools for your project. Rector can migrate to Symfony 5 or 6. Should update this slide, in fact. It can fix your code when you run Rector process, but it can also run in CI and actually check that things are not in an old way or a bad way done. And then finally, it can become sort of a team member for you that makes those suggestions for you. And it could actually contribute to your pull request if you like. So to me, this is really the future of refactoring. It's a very interesting tool. And well, there are some things that Tomasz told me about this, like some ideas. It could be that Rector becomes or has like a composer plugin that when you migrate to the next framework version, Rector will also run the rules that are needed to upgrade your code to work with the new framework version. And that could mean that you never experience those backwards compatibility breaks anymore. Rector will already fix the changes for you. And yeah, you can always upgrade or actually downgrade to any framework version without problem. So could that mean that there is no legacy code in the end? Well, no, of course. There is still a lot of work. I mean, legacy code is also by definition code that is not tested. And I think there's a lot of the code out there that is not tested, right? And yeah, that code, like Rector cannot produce tests for your code, for instance. But it can change and improve your code base like everywhere at once in a very safe way. So that's it's quite something. But I think that Tomasz will show us how that really works.
Okay, thank you, Matthias. I hope you can hear me. I had some issues before. Good.
Sounds good.
So I'll try to share my screen. see how it goes. Okay, can you see something?
Yes.
Okay. So I have just a little demonstration of what Rector does in practice. It can help you with upgrades, but today we will focus just on one practical use case that you probably already work with. If you use PHP 8, there are these new cool things called attributes, and it basically means instead of some annotations that are still seen as strings in some cases, you can use now a native PHP feature that is natively supported, and PHP stand can read it, Rector can read it, PHP parser can read it. So basically what you can do thanks to attributes better, let's say you use too many. Yeah, so if we have something like this in annotations, it's still seen as a string. So sometimes when you rename some class as a string, but if you use something like this in attributes, PHP can actually traverse here and find target entity and check if this is a real class. So this is something I would recommend to upgrade because you get so much better static analysis. So usually we can upgrade like this. This is like pretty simple. We can just paste or use some regular expression in IDE. But let's say we have more than one entity with 3 properties. Maybe we have 500, and maybe there is some ongoing development, and we don't want to make typos and stop everything. So we can use Rector for all this. I prepared a little set called this is something I have to mention. Rector is using PHP configuration based on Symfony. So basically, if you work with Symfony, you don't have to learn much more because all this is just Symfony config. Here are some parameters, and you can set what paths should be refactored. And here you can define some sets that should be applied. And sets are basically just another PHP config. So there's nothing special. So if you look here, we can see it goes to some PHP config. And here you can see many services that are prefixed, so that's why they look so weird. And here's basically config for Symfony PHP, Symfony 5.2. Rector has a couple of these prepared sets where we try to cover all that can be automated. Back to basics. So here we have Symfony 5.2, and here we have Doctrine ORM 2.9. These all attribute versions of what we have here. So Rector is a command line tool, so you can run it from your command line. It's like PHP and PHP units, all these similar tools. The main command is called process. So after we configure the paths in Rector.php, we can just run it. Also option dry run, but I recommend always for the first run. And basically tries to refactor everything it can. So this is a diff of what Rector suggests to refactor. So we can just check it. Yeah, that looks okay. And the entity is still untouched. So we can run it again. Okay, good. Now we can just send pull request and see if all test passes. So that was for PHP 8.0. In December, we added a little example with 8.1. Because since 8.1, we can also convert nested attributes. So you can use join columns and all these annotations that were as one main and many nested ones. Again, that's already covered here. Symfony 5.4. Rector always tries to work with a specific version of the framework or PHP when it happened. So let's say if you're using Symfony 5.0, it will not try to refactor something that's not there yet. So let's enable the set. Run again. See what happens. Now you can see nothing changed. And that's good because Rector is checking your PHP version. And in case you're using PHP 8, it will not force you features from new PHP version. So you have everything under control. And if you want something from new PHP version, there's this parameter called PHP version features. And here you can define what PHP version do you use. Let's say you are on type properties or union types. That's also constant PHP version, but I prefer this PHP version feature. So here we want to use new initializers. That goes again to PHP 8.1. So now Rector, now Rector catches this PHP version, and he suggests, okay, you are using PHP 8.1 and also Symfony 5.4. So we can refactor all these nested assertions. So let's try to run that. Good. So now we have PHP 8.1, Symfony 5.4, and Doctrine ORM 2.9 version. So here we usually end, but I try to add one more step because let's say I can commit this. Let's say we have, that's what Matthias was talking about, like Rector should explain you and tell you about new features. So let's say we have some new developers, and they are contributing this entity, and there's many properties or methods, and they don't see there are some attributes, and they just copy paste some code or code in the version they are used to. How is this type? Let's say string. Okay, and then contribute something like this. Okay, so there are two ways that what we can do with Rector. I've prepared little pull requests for this. Let's see. Yeah. So this is basically the work we've done. This is our manual work with Rector. We enabled some parameters in config, and then we applied the sets. Suddenly, somebody tries to contribute something in old syntax. And as Matthias mentioned, Rector can be coach. So I've prepared, we have this workflow that runs Rector, this branch. Yeah. So you can, and it's much recommended. Rector shouldn't be just one-time tool, but you should use it in CI. That's where it helps you most. So here we just check out setup PHP, run composer install, and then we run Rector on the code. And what happens Rector goes through code and it tries to suggest new features that should be applied according to the config. And if it finds something like this, it will fail. So basically, it will tell you, hey, there is some code, maybe there is some new syntax for it, like this one. So this way you can add new, let's say, even domain rules to your CI, and then you don't have to explain this rule to everybody and keep repeating the same rules, but the CI will explain the rules by showing exactly what should happen. And if you need, you can add a little annotation above the rule so anybody can read why is this happening or why should they do it this way. So it shows you how to do it and why should you do it. So here you can read about attributes or how it works in Doctrine. But for me, this is not enough because like this is still basically just bullying people and telling them what to do. I would like to, if Rector could save us some work, not to make us work more. So what you can do is actually use Rector to work for you. So what we do is that we just remove the dry run. So it means it will actually apply some code changes. Then we can, it's optional, add some coding standard because everybody has different opinion on what should be used. And the last step is that we add this action step that basically commits all the changes. So we let Rector commit the changes, we let fixit coding standard, and so we can remove. We use this GitHub action that basically just commits everything that has changed. That's all. It's super simple. So let's see if it helps. So now I've pushed this new step. Now Rector is running. You can see it here. So again, it checks out PHP, it installs dependencies. Because I have Doctrine there. Let's see, where is the Rector job? Yeah, okay, so it applies code changes. Then it runs coding standard, everything is okay. And then it tries to push it to the branch. So here we can see we have a new commit. And what's useful is that the new commit invokes the CI, so we can see if the change is actually valid or not. So I think that that's very useful. And in this commit, we should have seen the change. Yeah, so basically now, column name type. I made some typo here. I will have to fix it. So basically, this can teach new developers or spread new rules in a way that it's not annoying, and you can explain your people why they should do it. And as you can see, everything went well, and Rector now saved us a lot of work. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. So what about the tests? I think that's a recurring topic. I think you need them, right? In some way.
Tests. What exactly is the?
Yeah. No. Well, the thing is that I think that like what I've seen from Rector, of course, shows me that it's a very stable tool, so it can make those changes. But there is still some need to learn about, like, does this still work? So yeah. What do you think? Should we first still have some tests and then run Rector to see if it can fix the code base, or can you also run Rector without any tests in some ways?
I think work is kind of similar, like requirements are similar to what we people need. So the more tests, the more coding standards, the more PHP stand level there is, the easier it is to work. So basically, the higher code quality, the easier is it work for Rector. So definitely tests, definitely PHP stand. That's must have.
Yeah. But like the transformations that Rector makes are valid PHP code. We don't have to worry about that. And PHP stand can understand what we did as well. So if there is any kind of type mismatch, we will learn about that. So do you use it like this? Just run Rector and see what happens? Or do you look at all the changes that it makes?
It depends. When I'm writing some new rule, let's say there's some new feature like these attributes, I was checking what's going on.
Right.
Because there were some edge cases we had to cover.
Yeah.
But after like 10 iterations, it's pretty much like reliable.
Right. Yeah. So it's in the development of new rules that you want to try on new projects and see what happens. But then at some point, it's mature enough that you can just run it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like to me, that is kind of the dream for legacy development. That and it has always been kind of a contradiction with legacy code changes. That the rule is that you should first have a test and then make a change. But what if the change is safe enough that you don't need a test? Like there is no test, you don't even know how it's supposed to work, but we know that this transformation is a safe one. So let's make it. That could be a way out for me.
Yeah, that's actually what I like about PHP stand like motto, like test. How is it? Find errors without writing tests. So you don't have to write any tests, and PHP stand can learn much more from your code.
Yes.
So the same way, I think Rector can be helpful that not just one person, not two are using it, but let's say, I don't know, 100 or thousands. So if there is some really critical issue with attributes, let's say, they will report it, it will get fixed, and in 2-3 days you have new version.
That's really nice. Yeah. So about the relation with PHP stand, is that something you'd recommend? Like, do you install PHP stand first and then Rector, or how does it work?
Yeah, basically on a new project, I try to install first coding standards, because then they already solve many edge cases with like spaces and stuff. And then PHP stand, try to figure out ideally like level 3-4, and then I feel it's like safe enough you can run Rector. And PHP stand is important not only for defining types, but also Rector type inference runs on PHP stand. So basically, if PHP stand doesn't know, Rector will probably don't know either. So it's better to use PHP stand, Rector, and coding standard together.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah, that's I mean that's one thing I experienced. If you can help PHP stand understand code in even with some custom type resolvers or things like that, then it could be really helpful for Rector too. You get immediate advantage of like understanding what happens where. Right. So other questions or comments at this point?
Hi. Hi, Matthias. My name is Mesh.
Sorry?
Mesh. My name is Mesh.
Sorry, I can't understand.
Can you hear me?
Is it possible to write the question in the chat?
Oh, I'll do that.
Or other questions?
Yeah. Meanwhile, she's writing the question. I have one. So the minimal version for PHP that React can check, and as well Symfony, which is the one. So I don't see this on the Git the repo. Is possible to use maybe PHP 7.3 and Symfony 5 as it is, or we need to make something, or is totally compatible?
Thanks for this question. Rector is downgraded itself to PHP 7.1. So if you have PHP 7.1, you are good to go. And for the other dependencies, Rector itself uses many Symfony packages, but they are prefixed. So in the end, all you have to comply is the PHP one, because PHP 7.1, because everything else is just scoped and packed. And send it to the chat, the composer JSON, so you can check it.
Great, thanks. Yes, because I'm working with Oxid 6, and unfortunately it's using even Symfony 4. So, but we are running with PHP 7.4. So that's why, and it could be, I mean, even it's not possible to make a refactoring of all the core, but at least the new feature is possible. So that will help. Thanks.
Yeah. We have the other question now in the chat. Does Rector work with Laravel?
Rector, I'll also share it in the chat. This is the Rector organization on GitHub, and I mentioned Symfony because it's the project I know the best and I enjoy the most. But Rector can also work with other frameworks like Laravel, Nete. We have also Cake PHP. There is PHP unit. So we try to include all the major frameworks when there's some like BC break and need for upgrades. And then it often depends on the community. Let's say the Cake PHP community is very active, so they contribute a lot of their own rules because it makes sense to do this for their community. So this community contributes the rules, and the Cake PHP community can enjoy the upgrades.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Then, yeah, I'll take over the screen once more. To spend a few words talking about this project that that Thomas and I did last year. And the cool thing is that the book itself is also, can be automatically upgraded and checked. So it has been an interesting project to work on as well, to show that the code samples in the book are always correct, are always using the latest Rector version. It's meant as a manual. So of course, there's the documentation on the website, but the manual is going a bit deeper into the topic of understanding code and automatically refactoring it. Like, what is the process? What tools are there? What understanding do you need from other tools in the landscape? So it really shows the place in the ecosystem. And it's the Kickstarter for if you want to work on your own rules. So it's about creating your own migrations for your own typical legacy situations. That is, if Rector itself doesn't already have a rule for it, because like the catalog is very large. But yeah, sometimes you really want to fine tune it or create your own little migrations. And then it shows how to do it test driven. So it's a really safe process. And yeah, it also shows the full recipe for making Rector part of your team, just like Tomas has shown, where it's contributing as at the pull request level. So it's going to be very useful if you really want to get on board with Rector, or really the other way around. So then, yeah, if you buy it, you definitely support us in continuing this work on the book project, and Tomas on the main project itself, which is a lot of work. Which something I wanted to ask is, how do you stay on track with the project and like not get distracted by all the stuff that is coming to you?
Well, recent months, the most energy is given back from community. So there's a lot of people who contribute upgrade rules, downgrade rules, and like Symfony Laravel rules. So now I think it's about us, like what we will do about our lazy upgrades. And I really like people enjoy it. They just something actually I want to share one tweet if I can. That I got yesterday or today. This one. Like today actually. Today I tweeted something. Somebody replied. They used Rector, and they migrated from Fuel PHP to Laravel PHP, and they did it the way exactly how it's intended. So they could develop new features in the old framework. So they run in parallel the old development, and in the CI they was running downgrade automated automated refactoring with custom rules. So basically, they developed in the old framework, and meantime, in parallel, they developed the migration scripts for Rector. So
very cool.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and you do that kind of thing for Rector itself as well, right? The downgrade process, where you work in the modern version and you downgrade to make it available to others.
Yeah, because I'm too lazy and I have very bad memory, so I don't know what's old PHP, what's new.
Yeah.
So and also a lot of people are running on old PHP. So we were using, let's say, PHP 7.3, but people ask for 7.2, 7.1, and it was kind of this tension, you know. So now we bumped Rector itself to PHP 8.1. So we will develop all these read-only union attributes.
Cool.
But we downgraded on release on every tag to PHP 7.1. So we can both enjoy the new features and people can use it in the old PHP version.
Amazing. Yeah. So what keeps you from going to 5.6? Is that?
It's too hard. Yeah, actually had some community say discussion, or I asked community if there is a need for it, but there was not much feedback. Like most people struggle with 7.1 and higher than go to 8.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. So then, sorry.
A question regarding the downgrading of Rector. How do you do that in details? Because that packagist works the correct way, that it knows which version to use when you install it locally.
Yeah, well, basically we released just one version that's downgraded to 7.1 and higher. So if you have anything 7.1, 7.2, 8.0, 8.1, you still get the same code. We can take it.
So you don't distribute a version that is 8.1, but you only distribute a version that is 7.1.
Yeah. We were actually doing what you said, but then people were confused what syntax they should use in custom rules. So we made it kind of like simplified to one version.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So the big question, the question I asked earlier, what big dreams do you have for your project? And maybe we can consider, is Rector a tool for that, or is it too big a dream?
For me, it's like kind of like a dream come true, because for me, it's about community, and more people use it and contribute. And recently, we were more closer with PHP Stan developer Andrew on the Mirtes, and because I need some upgrade help with new PHP Stan, and he started to use Rector to downgrade PHP Stan itself. So we are kind of like sharing this like knowledge.
Nice.
And there is a guy from Malaysia, I think, Lioloso, and he uses Rector to downgrade PHP plugins for WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
So he develops in PHP 8 and he downgrades for the community to 7.1.7.2.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Okay. So what other big things like anyone else maybe wants to do with Rector and see if that works?
In your introduction, you said Rector can refactor from active record to ORM.
Well, no, I didn't say that. I said like at some point we want to, right? That's but Rector can certainly help with that. Yeah.
Okay, what is possible? Where are limitations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's not active record to data mapper per se, but I was working on a migration tool that can look at doctrine annotations and then rewrite those annotations as like custom mapping code to say here is an array record and just take out the data and convert it to an integer on the spot instead of let doctrine do it. Just have your own mapping, and that's a nice example, I think, of something you can write with Rector once you have the recipe in mind for the code that you want, and you can explain it to someone in very simple words. Then you can also explain it to Rector itself. So yeah, it's just a recipe. Like look at the name of the property, look at the column type, and based on those 2 bits of information, decide what type of casting should we do and what key should we fetch from which array. So it's like a very repetitive process that has you looking up and down in the file, and that is a great thing that you can let Rector do for you. But there's probably more than just creating mapping code, I'm sure. But this is how it works. You find this big dream, that this big migration that you want to do, and then you can create all those little rules one by one. You don't have to create one very complex rule. You can just target bits of the code step by step. And if you do a test first, then you can show with tests that the migration of this one bit is correct. And finally, you combine all those migrations into one big one, and you can write a test for that as well to show that, yeah, this is the first situation, and now after running Rector, it should be like this. Any other big projects that you want to do?
Well, I have a very big project. I just joined a team. We've had a huge legacy code. It's been developed for 15 years. In those years, they didn't improve the code. So the code written today is still the same as they did 15 years ago. About 2 to 3 years ago, some guy tried to introduce some Symfony components. Unfortunately, not in the right way. Well, I'm looking for my big dream is to make this code a lot better. Preferably wrap it in Symfony. But there is absolute no structure in the current code base. And it's really thousands and thousands of files and lines of codes, everything in one place, copy and paste it 20 times in different places. Is Rector also a tool which can help in those situations? Or should we first try to get the code in a better shape before we can use a tool like Rector? I must say it's already 7.4 compatible. So That's the step we already made.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, the first keyword is no structure. I think that makes it hard because it's hard to define a simple recipe for things.
Yes.
Like take this bit of code, put it in that class, or rename this method, or I don't know, things like that can be really hard at that point. But there are also some more basic rules that Rector can still do for you, like improve return types, or I don't know if that's the kind of thing you're looking for. Tomasz, maybe you have additional input.
It's great to have PHP 7.4 because I was afraid you will say something 5.4. That will be problem. So that's a good start. From my experience, it mostly depends on the mentality of the team also. So in some teams, there's like one person like you who would like to, do the change, make something happen. And then there is like 6 other developers and 1 CTO and the business. And they're like, nah, I'm not sure why we should change anything if it works. And so when somebody tries to like do the upgrade, I always ask them like, why do they want to do it? And how many people in the team wants to do it? Because if you can convince the CTO and the business people and you believe in yourself, then like it's super easy. You can use Rector PHP coding standard and it will most likely happen. And from the technical side, I would introduce coding standards and PHP Stan, improve the CI, and then you can slowly add Rector, 1 rule, 2nd rule. If everything goes well and if you do it like slowly step by step, so everybody has the confidence in the process, then it's like generate success.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds positive. I have already convinced the whole team and CTO that we should make those steps. The whole team's behind those decisions. Well, we improved the code already to be PHP 7.4 compatible. I introduced also coding standards. So that's a plus. But now we are stuck with completely unstructured code. I'm not sure how Rector can help with that.
Well, basically, to run Rector, you need to have at least Composer, let's say class map autoload, but namespace or PSR4 would be better. If you have at least this, then you can use Rector.
Okay. We are already at that point, so that sounds promising.
Great. Yeah.
Great job.
And maybe I should read the book.
Yeah, that also helps. I think that gives you confidence, like about the process, because we don't write only about Rector what it does, but we also like start with project, let's say like yours. It's in some shape. We want to improve. What are these steps one by one? How should we proceed? So we can like be sure and safe and really make the change happen.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. In particular, the tests are something because the Rector rule can look like magic a lot for others who are not into Rector. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't understand. But if you can show that the tests are there and you have a before and an after snippet that show that the transformation works, then that gives people a lot of confidence. Yeah.
Okay, we just started last month with writing tests, so.
Great. Yeah. But I can imagine it's a lot to do, lots to change, and it's also hard because usually there are these, well, you could say forces that have led to the project being the way it is right now. Like, how did it come to be this project that is the same for 15 years and never improved? But I'm glad to hear that the team is on board and everybody is looking forward to it. I think it's a great start. Cool. So, any other ideas that we should discuss?
Sorry, I have to ask again. If I have a big ball of mud or whatever, or even if I have, for example, a Laravel or a Symfony application that is developed as it is described in the manual of those frameworks, and now, for example, I want to drive the direction something like a hexagonal architecture or something like you describe in your other book about advanced web application architecture. Do you see a big advantage of using Rector, or is there so much manual work to do? Is there a benefit of using Rector in such a situation?
To migrate to a different structure or
to a different architecture structure, whatever. Yes.
Yeah. To be honest, I haven't considered that to be an option. I guess for some, if you want to do some large scale transformations, then I'm sure Rector can help with that. I still think there is a lot of like reading involved, and to see what happens where and what should be moved to where, to which other part, because most of the work, if you have an existing project, if you want to go to that sort of layered ports adapter style architecture, then it's about extracting things, moving things to different classes that have their own responsibilities, but more important, they are not coupled to the framework or to infrastructure in general. That's something, I have considered using PHP Stanford at least to signal problems with that, but I'm not sure you can actually fix those problems right away. So I like to say that this function is impure. There's no way that you can automatically fix that. So you have to think about it. And I think that's part of the power of these design approaches, where you think about what is the part that I want to be coupled and what is the part that I want to be decoupled.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something, some like great combo about PHP Stan and Rector. Like you can let Rector do the easy pickups and upgrade frameworks, PHP, all this stuff, add types if possible. And then what's like about your decisions, you can create a PHP Stan rule for that. Like let's say all the doctrine repositories can use Entity Manager, but nowhere else. You can there's already a rule for that, you can use it. And if in the future you feel like, there is just one solution to this place, you can move this PHP Stan rule to Rector rule. So it will apply everywhere that you need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I think Rector focuses more on the language and like structure at a lower level, and if you don't have to think about all those things, it frees up some mental space to think about design, what goes where, and what's a better way, a value object, an entity, all these decisions. Does it answer your question?
Yes. For me, it looks like a little bit like Code Beautifier in comparison to Code Sniffer. So you have one style and you want to have it in another style, and probably using PHP Stan and the PHP parser, you can get much more information about the project than Code Sniffer can extract from a token stream.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is next level. It has some similar ideas where it understands a bit of the code and then changes it. But it goes a lot further because it can understand what's going on. Like early returns, I've had the experience where Rector just changes a bit of code to use early return as a best practice. It's like, oh, that's great. I didn't think of it, but apparently it's better. And with just tokens, that would be impossible, right? Okay. Any other ideas that we should consider?
Hi, Thomas and Matthias. Thank you for the talk. I'm about to migrate from Symfony 4.4 to Symfony 5.4. What's the current state of doing the migration with Rector at the moment? Can I do it in one step, or should I go through 5.0, 5.1, 5.2, 5.4?
For me, definitely the small upgrade there is the better. So even if there is two like Rector, I would go just 5.4 to 5, because I think that's the biggest step. There will be some probably changes in PHP versions maybe and dependencies. So I would do it like one minor version by another.
Okay, I'll try.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
And if you have some troubles, just create Rector issue. What's your problem, and yeah, we'll check it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.